Hello everybody and welcome to round 3 of season 1 of the Ion Formula Retro, the Ion Formula 2010. We're just about to get underway for the 35 lap race here in Cyprus. Sorry, not Cyprus, in Ibiza, and a pole sitter is not even on the circuit, so 5 lights and they're out. It's hard to tell who's got a good start. Critical Noob not got the best of starts. Off the line in these wet conditions. In the lead, I believe that's Ben for the Fox Motorsport team. It's currently 1-2. Rachia K following behind. On the back of him is Critical Noob and Outguard. Oh, sorry, not Outguard. Outguard's not having the best of starts, but Masi is in the wall and he might be out. He's out of the race, so that's the first retirement on lap 1. We've already got one retirement. Masi is out of the race. But it's still Ben in the lead and safely now. Gap to his teammate 1.6. It goes Ben, Ratcha, the third, Critical Noob, Outguard, and Macho. Those are the 6 drivers still in the race. Macho far behind anyone else. 6 seconds separating him and the next car of Outguard and that KR. KR still on the back. Everyone on the wet tires for the 73% track water currently. But Ben on his own, leading, extending his gap to his teammate. These wet conditions really favoring this Fox Motorsport team. But Baratia in the other car is getting has got his invalidation. And I'm not entirely sure who that is at the back. I believe that's Foxy in the Jaguar. He might have not started the actual race, and that's going to affect him greatly. Still, Ben leads. That's a lap of Foxy here in the Jaguar. But Ratchet, okay, again, the gap constantly growing between him and his teammate. 2.5 at the last timing line. The third losing time to Ratchet. So currently it's 1-2 for Fox Motorsports, seemingly the best team in the wet currently. Long corner, I'm expecting a couple of retirements, especially with this track water today. Fortunately, only 6 drivers, and that's a third going very aggressively towards Raja, and I think a mistake has been made for Ben, who has lost time to the next car, or that might just be a glitch in the timing. But coming on to lap 3 of 35, it's still Ben leading, still Raja, but I think that's about to change as the third starting to look like he wants to make a move. Got the DRS open, that's a questionable decision in the rain, but the third still on the back of the other Fox Motorsports car. Chasing now down the first major braking zone of the circuit. It looks like he's got a better run through the corner. And Fox, Raja, not got the best of exits. They're side by side. That's Foxy being kicked from the race. And here we go. This is the third. Trying to make the move onto Raja. Side by side, 4 temps apparently according to the timing line separating them. That is not what it looks like in on track, and that's the third. Now into P2 ahead of Raja, breaking up that 1-2 for the Fox Motorsports team. But Rat, he's going to want to attack, try and get that position back, and he's hit the wall trying to chase him down, but they're side by side into the hairpin. The dice hairpin, as it's affectionately known now. Got that slipstream, and he's going to be making the move into this final chicane. They're side by side. It's hard to tell who's ahead, but looks like it's going to be the third. Head towards the timing line though. Raja might be running a bit of a lower downforce setup. He's gaining time, but the third, using that ERS deployment, is now going to get a big gap, or a bigger gap, to Raja than what he had before. But again, these two side by side as we head into the braking zone. They're within each other. But I think the third hit the wall on the outside. He's going very wide through these corners, and someone's on track. But Raja now back into P2, but the gap to his teammate Ben still grows at 75% track water. Ben is going to be keeping his lead unchallenged for the most part. Anyway, heading towards final section of the track. The third going very deep into the hairpin chicane. That's not going to do him any favors. Outguard might be looking to get past the third on the straight, but no, he's got to slow down, so he's going to be out of this fight for P2 and the third. Both Raja and the third hitting the wall on the exit of turn 1. They're very lucky to not have any damage, and the third on the back of Raja, and it seems to be a recurring pattern. The car in front taking a wider line through that hairpin, looking to get a better exit, and the third, I think he's got ahead based on Raja hitting the wall as we head towards the Royal Dice Club, and it looks like the third is go. No, he's hit the wall. He's almost spun round, and they're now back side by side again. Mistake is made. Someone passes each other, but then the other car makes another mistake. This is just going to be a battle of attrition, trading places repetitively throughout the track, but it looks like Raja and that Fox into the hairpin is slightly ahead, is going to get the better exit into the tunnel, and that's the third. Now back into P3. He started that sector in P2. The RS Open might be looking to make a move or hopefully force, but no, both make a mistake again into turn 1. The third seems to have come out worse from his. We're heading towards the first braking zone. They're not as close as they have been on previous laps, so this might be the break that Raja needed in order to further his gap and solidify himself in that P2 position. He got purple sector 1 just now. He's gained 2 seconds on his teammate in that one sector, and the third not too far behind, but losing time nonetheless. 9/10 of a second separating these two drivers for the first time in the race. These two have been separated, and the third looks to be struggling a little with these tires around the long turn Sochi T3 corner. Seems to have struggled a little bit, but he's gaining back and trying to keep with Raja, who's now 1.12 in the second sector, and it looks to be even more as we head to the third timing line. But I think Raja made a big mistake going a bit wide and going a bit deep into the hairpin chicane at the end of the circuit. So now back again, Raja is being challenged, and he makes a mistake hitting the wall in turn 1, and he loses P2, and he's lost a lot of time, and he's now in the crutches of Mr. Macho Globe for P4, and I think now he's been overtaken for that P3 position, so it goes now Ben, the third, and Mr. Macho Globe. So from P2, Raja has gone from P2 to P4 in one lap, just from 2 mistakes in the 2 consecutive corners at the start of the lap. He's not going to be giving up very easily. 6/10 separating these two, and I think the thirds might have made a mistake, because that gap between P3 and P2 has incredibly decreased, and they're right on the back of each other. So here we go, Macho on the back of the third for P2. So he was in P4, and he's now challenging for the second position in this race. 4.5, 4.7, but 1.3 back. So he's got plenty of time to spare if he's going to fight the third ahead. But he goes wide, hits the wall. Not cost him that much time. But Ben, purple in the first sector. 5/10 faster than anyone around him. It's going to be drier conditions. We've got the sun out, but it's still raining, and so the track order is going to be decreasing. We might start to see very soon the first pit stops of the race as we reach about 50% track order. So in about 1 lap's time, we'll see a couple of people come into the pit lane, or maybe if they have the foresight. Let's watch Ben. Let's see what he decides to do. Does he decide to come into the pits? No, it's a bit too late for that anyway. What about everyone else? They don't seem to be coming into the pit lane. But New tires. Oh, someone goes in. I think that was Outguard. And, oh, sorry, Deferred. Macho and Outguard all come into the pit lane for presumably intermediate tires. With these changing conditions. Now less track water on track. First out is going to be Deferred. And Macho seems to have lost a lot of time. He's now being threatened by Outguard. Outguard on those intermediates has made the move. He's now going to be up into P5. Critical. He's sort of been a sleeper agent in this race. I don't remember actually him being in this race, to be fair. But on those wets, he's improving his time, and he might want to come into the pit lane now. He's purple in the first sector. Fastest of everyone, fastest of Ben. These decreasing track water conditions. Maybe we'll see these two at the front. I believe Ben, who's on the wet still, might want to gamble on dry compound tires. Oh, that's not good. It's hit the wall, and let's see what he decides to go on. And also Ratja, who will be coming into the pit lane. Presumably, there we go, and Critical is staying out. Wow, that's a ambitious move on those wet compound tires to stay out, but maybe he feels like he has the grip to extend and maybe only have to pit once for dry tires, as got Deferred, and the other intermediate runners are now being pushed out of their operational window. And we're starting to approach dry tire conditions. Let's see what Ratio went on to. They went on to the intermediate tires. I think Ben will have also as well. Critical comes into the pits. He's going to lose that P1 position, but let's see where he comes out in terms of everyone else. He's gone on to intermediate tires. He might have lost out more than he's gained from not pitting a lap earlier for intermediate tires. He took a gamble to see whether he'd be able to go on to dry compound tires. He has not currently been able to. It's Ben leading, Deferred second, a big gap now. 2/10 or 2 seconds, sorry, separating him and the next. Outguard getting a purple first sector, but beaten by Macho Globe currently, who has the fastest lap out of everyone. Heading into the second sector, I'm going to go on board with Mr. Macho, who's on the back of this train. Ratcha and Outguard ahead of him. You can see them fighting out front. The Fox and KR Motorsports chasing down that Boot GP car. Neither going purple in the second sector, but Outguard seems to have improved on his overall time. Macho looking to join in on this fight ahead of them. KR and Fox. The DRS Open seems a bit more acceptable. There's a lot less water on track. Let's see how clean it is into turn 1 for Macho. Clean for everyone. Everyone through safely, no damage, but Outguard is going to be on the back of Deferred, heading into... Oh, Deferred goes wide. These three are side by side. Ratja, Outguard, and Deferred side by side for P2. All three of them pretty equal on time. No one seems to have got the better exit, but it seems like Outguard is currently pulling ahead with Deferred and Ratja behind him. So currently, Outguard is ahead in P2, and the two behind him, Ratja and Deferred, fighting for P3 and 4 respectively. Currently looks like Ratcha is going to be ahead with a better exit out of the long turn, but they're still side by side. They're still fighting, and this quarrel has allowed Macho to get onto the back of these. So it's going to be a 4-car battle for P4. For P2 to 5, really. Equal in 2 sectors. Will they make it a third where they've been equal and matched on time? Currently, no. Macho falling back and still side by side. Well, now side by side is Outguard and Fox after turn... the final turn after turn 1. Now equally all matched on pace, all on the same part of circuit, but it looks like Ratcha has fallen behind out of the 4 of them, and Deferred is getting away. So now it's Macho and Outguard fighting for P3 and P2, but Deferred makes a mistake. Macho now on the back trying to make an attack for that P2 position. Outguard looking to get into the action as well. They're inside each other through the long corner. It's going to be all about who gets the better exit in the next turn. And then finally onto the final 2 straights of the lap. Will anyone make any major mistakes? Will anyone go into the wall? Deferred looking to get a better exit into the tunnel. He's going to get that better exit. He's going to lead for the P2 battle. Apparently breaking a bit earlier. Deferred goes wide, and it's going to be again about who gets this better exit. Ratchet looking to get in on the action. Outguard has not got the best of exits, and now Deferred and Macho are fighting for P2 into turn 1. Clean for both of them. Macho ahead. Deferred, then Outguard. Ratchet making a slight mistake in the background. You got the purple second sector last lap, and Outguard going a bit wide, but now back in the battle for P2. These 3 are going to be fighting into the fast section of the track. It's going to be whether anyone makes any mistakes, or whether anyone makes just a slight correction to their driving. But it looks like Outguard has made the move on Deferred. Deferred not got the best of exits, heading towards the long turn, the long sweeping right-hander. Deferred back into P4. It goes Macho, Outguard, and Deferred. These 3 battling for P2. Ratchet seems to have fallen behind and is no longer in the battle. So across the line, Macho got a comfortable lead, or a comfortabler lead. Out to go, Deferred hitting the wall. Outguard has got that P3 securely for now. Deferred pushed into P4, and Ratchet might actually be able to fight Deferred for this P4 position and looking to get back into this battle for P2. But currently Ben seems to be comfortably in the lead with a 3.5 second gap. Ratchet was purple in the first sector and is now on the back of Deferred into the long sweeping right-hander. He's made the move. Deferred. This is not going well for him. He's lost time, he's lost grip, and he's losing pace. Rapidly, he's gone from P2 all the way now to P5. At the front, Macho and Outguard still battling. 6 attempts between them at the last timing line. Ben still comfortably in the lead, but losing time. 3 attempts lost in that sector alone, and we'll see how the situation changes as we head across the start. And it's 2 or 3 attempts. Ratchet taking the fastest lap, but 3 attempts again in that sector. So at this rate, in 10 sectors, 3 and a bit laps, he'll be on the back of the leader, Ben, in the Fox Motorsports car, unless either of them makes significant mistakes. And Ratchet, the fastest lap, now looking to challenge Outguard for P3. Looks like Outguard made a slight mistake, and Ratchet now within range to make an overtake. Outguard going a bit wide. He might have clipped the wall, but he's now allowed Ratchet to get on the back. It's a slide on that ERS a bit too early. Slid out of the corner, and he's sliding again. His rear tires can't be doing very well. He's still on the back of Outguard, and he's going wide, and I think that's going to be him falling out of the battle as he tries to make a lunge into the hairpin, but it's cost him on his exit, and it's now a matter of time before the leaders are caught. And I think Ben might have made a bit of a mistake, and now we're going to be seeing heavier rain returning. So, rain, track water increasing. Ben in the lead. Deferred made an early call to go into the pit lane on those wets. They're not going to be effective yet, but they might be in a lap. I don't think this call is going to work out for him. He's not going to be working in the ideal window for those wet tires, and currently intermediates are definitely the best option. For Macho, now a 10th closer to P1, a 10th closer to leading the race. Ratcha in the background making a slight mistake, hitting the wall, and is still on the back of Outguard. 1 tenth separating them at the last timing line. Macho, oh, everyone's coming into the pits. Ben and Macho is coming to the pits. Ratcha is coming into the pits, but it's Outguard who stayed out on these intermediate tires. Might believe it's a safer option currently to stay out on intermediate tires, stay out on the ideal tires with this current amount of track water. 41%. Inters are about 20% to 55%. That's when they're most effective. So currently, it does seem like the better strategy decision to remain on intermediate tires. It does seem like the better decision for pace to stay on intermediate tires. We could see Outguard within the next couple of laps, if not this lap, come into the pits for wet tires. And again, it's critical to also staying out, looking to maybe try and get himself back into this battle, but he's had that bad start, and he had a couple of issues at the start, pushed him back, and he's not having the greatest of races. In provisional P6 currently. And the battle, this means after the pit stops actually, the Macho is on the back of Ben, so for the provisional lead, we're not entirely sure just yet, but it looks like it will be the lead for these two drivers. When the two cars in front of them pit, it's Macho on the back of Ben for the lead, or the provisional lead of the race. He's got that DRS heading into the fast swooping turn 1. Goes a bit wide, but he's got the move done. He's into provisional P1, into current P3. And I think that Ben, his battle won't be with Macho. His battle will now just be trying to hold on to that P4, or that P2, that provisional P2, but he's not giving up fight just yet for Macho, who's on a good run currently on these wet tires. 48% track water, no change. There's now no increase in track water, and it seems like there's no reason to pit onto the wet tires unless conditions change very soon. So Macho now has to make it his responsibility, unless things change, as I said, to gain 14 seconds or 9 seconds to the next couple of drivers. And I think Ben making another mistake as a hairpin, falling back into the reaches of his teammate Ratcha and the other Fox Motorsports cars, goes a bit wide at the hairpin chicane, and now that's going to put Ratcha right on the back of his teammate, separated by only 1 second. And oh, both of them hitting the wall. I thought it was just going to be Ben, and now equal mistakes, but both falling away from Macho, who's currently gaining time to the leader, and subsequently critical and Outguard. So on those inters at the front, Outguard currently leading, but only 12 seconds separating him now and Mr. Macho Globe, who's on the wet tires. It might be a wise decision to maybe go for a newer set of tires and try and gain time. This is sort of a weird transition period where wets and inters are about the same pace, 50 to 60. That's when they'll be equally matched in terms of grip, in terms of performance in the rain. Macho still gaining on the leaders. Everyone else equal pace to Outguard, if not slower pace, but Macho in the past couple of laps gained 4 seconds, was 15 seconds behind Outguard, is now 11, and still looking to decrease that gap. And I think Critical is also looking to gain on Outguard. 8 attempts in the past couple of laps, gained on the leading car. But the timing line, 10.6, another second in that sector alone. These wet tires looking to be helping him, and I believe that's Critical Noob who we see just ahead. So Critical Noob going into turn 1 currently. Macho about to cross the line, but now it's only 4 seconds separating Critical and Outguard. So Critical hurrying up on those older intermediate tires, trying to catch Outguard, who's also on the intermediate compound, and Macho on these newer wet tires is going to be pushing. And I think someone's made a mistake. I hear a slow car. Oh, it's just a car that's been there the entire time. Never mind. But 3.1, it was 4. 3.1 separating Critical and Outguard. 2.7 at the second sector timing line. So Critical now gaining even more than Macho is each lap, and Critical will be looking to make a move for the lead. 13 laps remaining. 13 laps for Critical to overtake Outguard. 13 laps for Macho to overtake both of them. And on these older tires, they might be suffering, or might begin to suffer very soon. Critical still chasing. 2.4 separating them to was 2.7. Let's see how this plays out, but Macho seems to have invalidated his lap a little at the end, and I think someone going slowly again? Not that I've seen it. On board with Outguard, let's watch him as he goes through the Royal Dice Club section of the circuit. This is the line he's taking. Let's have a look. 2 seconds actually separating Critical and Outguard. Let's watch how Macho takes that section. Oh, I'm a bit too late, unfortunately. But he can now see the spray of his opponent ahead. You can now see the spray of Critical. 2 seconds at the first sector, and he's lost a 10th. That's insignificant. Let's go on board with Critical, who now has the leader in his sights. Heading towards the final section of the circuit, heading through the dice hairpin into the tunnel. It's a bit skirmish out of the chicane. Not out of the chicane, out of the hairpin. Not the best of exits for Critical, but he's going to get a better exit. And Outguard comes into the pit lane. He's going to probably go onto wet tires or new intermediate tires. This got Critical in the lead, hitting the wall on his screen. But 5.7 seconds now separate Macho and the leader. And that was 11. 4 laps ago. So Outguard comes out. I'm not entirely sure where he came out. Let's see what Ratchia is. Ratchia is at the next hairpin. So Outguard comes out provisionally in P4. He's going to be fighting Ratchia. But it's only... Oh, I'm incorrect actually. Ben is behind his teammate. And then it's Outguard. So Outguard is actually in P5 from the leading position. He has 15 seconds to catch if he wants to make any difference. So in 10 laps, he has 15 seconds to gain if he wants to be in the lead, or 4 if he wants to be on the podium. Ratchia, who has the fastest lap currently, only pit good few laps ago. But hopefully, maybe, Outguard on these newer intermediate tires will be looking to move towards potentially a P3 or P4 finish. Oh, and that's Ben going into the pit lane. So those wet tires, he's decided, aren't working out for him. They're a bit old, and he's going to come into the pits, maybe replace them, maybe go onto the intermediate tires. But that puts Outguard into P4, 4 seconds behind, or 3.5 seconds behind Ratchia. And Macho, 5 seconds, losing time to Critical, who's currently in P1 with only 10 laps. In 10 laps to recuperate that lead he lost from pitting for wet tires. But actually, I stand corrected. The track water is increasing, and this will mean that, well, it would be a safe bet for everyone to pit for new tires, apart from Outguard, of course, who pit on just 2 laps ago for new intermediate tires. He's now going to have to switch again onto the wets. That's going to cost him further time. He's going to be behind now. Critical Noob, who comes into the pit lane. But Macho is going to stay out on those wet tires. That's going to put him back into the lead of the race. Let's see if where Critical comes out. On board with Critical currently. This is Ratia, and he's ahead. So, pitting earlier for wet tires has now benefited them. They might have thought that they would go to wet tires a bit earlier than this, but now it's benefited them, and now they're back. But what this has done for Critical is put him back in the race for the lead or a podium. He was dead last. Well, out of everyone that was in the race, he was dead last. But now he's back and he's fighting for a podium. Ben in the pit lane, and I assume Outguard has also came in for wet tires. They're going to be out pretty much of this race now, unless another significant change, where we see differing strategies, comes around. But 30 seconds, 48 even, separating Ben, third, Outguard, and the leader, Mr. Macho Globe. Ratia 6.6 behind Mr. Macho, losing time each and every sector, each and every lap. And looks to be struggling through this final sector here with those rear tires. I wouldn't be surprised if I saw some of these older wet tire runners come in with only 8 laps remaining. But 1.2 lost just in that final sector alone, and this is going to leave Critical on the back of Ratia for P2 as we're heading towards 100% track water, currently at 95. So on board with Critical Noob as we go through the Royal Dice Club section. Ratia struggling ahead with those rear tires, constantly having to save the car, constantly having to keep it out of the wall. Those walls are close and they do not get further away for most of the circuit. And there's very little runoff, but this is going to be Critical right at the back. They're both struggling in this high track water conditions. But it seems like Critical is getting the better of it, getting the better exits, and Ratia, and both of them struggling on traction. It's Critical right on the back, right on the rear wing. You see Ratia defending ahead with his ERS. Critical Noob moves to the side, but he's going to go deep. That's going to allow Ratia to keep on and keep hold with that P2 position for one more lap. Ratia trying to gain time on the straight with that ERS deployment heading into turn 1. Both are relatively smooth, but Critical hitting the wall. That's going to not doing him any favors, but he's using that ERS to try and get back into the battle. Hits the wall a bit on the entry to the corner, but he's made the move currently on Ratia. He's now up into P2. And now all he has to do is chase down the leader, Mr. Macho Globe, which he might just do. 5.5 seconds left to gain in 7 laps. Will he be able to do it? Macho comfortably ahead. Actually, let's see how he's doing with his traction, and he seems to be doing well, not having any major mistakes. I say that as he hits the wall on the inside, no damage. But he seems to be doing better than everyone else in terms of traction. Seems to be faster than everyone else currently, but I say that 5.2 now separating. It was 5.7, 5 tenths in the second sector alone. Last lap for that Critical. And he's going to be looking to try and get onto the back of Macho before the end of the race. Let's see the gap across the start-finish line. It's a second in the final sector. 4.3 now with 5 or 6 laps remaining. Critical making this final push for the lead, making this final push for a battle, even just for P1. And he was dead last again. Heading towards the final half of the track. Final half of the race even. Critical. Mitchell Macho has just gone through the Dice Club section. Hits the wall on that. I don't even know which corner that is. But Critical now trying to gain whatever time he's lost, sliding into the long right-hander, sliding on entry. That's not going to do him any favors. 4.2, 2 tenths lost. So now he'll only have 6 laps to gain back whatever time he's lost. Mr. Macho in the tunnel, heading towards the final 2 corners. Critical only just come through it, so he can see the leader, but he can't catch him. And he's sliding through that final chicane, trying to get a better bit of rotation. Let's see the the gap between them, 3.9. So 3 tenths in the final sector, and it's a clean first sector sliding. Very well done by Critical to keep it out of the wall there. Only a couple, well, not that much space between them and the wall and Macho ahead, but how comfortably. Going for the dissection, we're going to reach the first timing line, 3.3. So again, another 7 tenths or so in the past 4 laps. And he's going to be able to see. Well, actually, for context, it was 4.2 as we head to the second sector line last lap. But now, it's only down to 3.2. So in 1 lap, he's gained a second. At this rate, in 3 laps, he'll be there to fight with Mr. Macho Globe, to fight for that victory, provided that neither of them make any significant mistakes, especially for Critical not to make any mistakes, but also for Mr. Macho Globe to not make any mistakes. If Macho makes a mistake, that'll put him even closer to being overtaken by Critical. Let's watch the gap they head across the line. 3.4, not the best of final sectors, and not that clean in the first sector either. Let's go on board with Macho, who's currently going through the hairpin, the first hairpin of this lap. Keeping it nice and clean, keeping it out of the wall, sliding a little through that crash car. I think that's the crash car of Massey on the outside of the circuit. 3.3 separating them. So now Macho is starting to match the pace, no pun intended, of Critical. The car chasing him behind, and Critical pushing as hard as he can, pushing to the limits of the track, clearly defined by the walls. 2.7, so 5 tenths in the middle sector. It might be possible for Critical to make the move before the end of the race, but it's going to be very tight, and it's not certain. But we have to understand, again, the Critical is on newer tires, and is able to afford cuts, and he takes a cut there on the second to last corner, and he's now got the leader inside. 2.2, 5 tenths, another 5 tenths. At this rate, he only has 4 sectors, 1 and a bit laps before he catches the leader. On board with Critical Noob through the first hairpin, through turn 2, and he's got the leader in his sights, even more so than he has on previous laps, and he's even closer than he was. 2 tenths in the first sector. He's only got a matter of time if he maintains this pace before he catches the leader, who before on previous laps has been miles ahead in this. He was leaving this corner before Critical had entered it, is now just in front of him. He didn't make a mistake. We saw him hitting the wall on the inside on the entry and through the hairpin. He's going to try and take a bit of a cleaner line using the throttle to help rotate his car. He's now got Macho right in front of him. So the gap across the line is 1.9 seconds. 2 laps remaining. 2 laps for Critical to try and make a push. All Macho has to do is keep a somewhat fast pace without keeping it, well, while keeping it out of the wall. That's all he has to do in order to maintain this P1 position. But he's not doing a good job of it. 1.1 separate them in the first sector, and he's right on the back of him, heading into the Coliseum. The Critical trying to get onto that throttle, trying to keep that gap down. 0.4 separate them now. And we're seeing sunny conditions. So in the last 3 laps of the race, we're going to see a drying track, and it might be worth it for these 2 drivers to keep out on the wet tires. But it's Critical who's made the move for P1. They're struggling now on wet tires, and Macho might make a move into the pit lane. No, neither of them make a move into the pit lane. Macho getting a cut. Both of these drivers have a cut before they get a penalty. 70% track water, 25% lost in one sector. But it's Critical, who's not far behind. But Critical has also lost that lead that he did gain temporarily at the start of this lap. And he's got a great run through the Royal Dice Club section. He's right on the back of Macho once again, heading towards the Coliseum. He's closer than he has been on previous laps, and this might just be the moves. We hit 50% track water. We might see either of these drivers come into the pit lane. Might also not be the wisest of moves. So, side by side again. Through the dice hairpin, into the tunnel. It looks like it's Critical ahead. Macho in second, heading towards the hairpin chicane to finish out the lap. Do either of them come into the pit lane? Neither of them come into the pit lane for dry tires. Coming onto the final lap. Lap 35 out of 35. And Critical getting a big slide out of turn 1, but still ahead. 0.5 across the start-finish line. And might be worth it for these two drivers to just bring it home. Well, it will be worth it as they can't pit and it's the last lap of the race. Critical has actually improved his overall time, so he's treating these wet tires as if they're dry. And gained 0.5 of a second, half a second to Macho. And Macho, who's been on the lead securely for about 10 laps now, lost it in the second to last lap and is now losing. He's 1.2 behind Critical. All Critical has to do is not make a big mistake, a major mistake in any of these last two corners. He hasn't so far at the dice hairpin, and he's going to keep it nice and clean, sliding around, and he's going to come across the line, presumably to win. No mistakes made, and yes, this is it. He comes across the line, he finishes, and P1, but Macho 0.6 behind. Ratcha improving on the soft tires. Purple second sector. He is securely in P3 currently, and I believe all drivers up to P5 will finish this race in their current positions unless Outguard makes a major mistake, which doesn't seem likely at all, and Ben isn't that far behind. But currently, it's Critical, Macho, Ratcha, Outguard, and Ben who's leading the race, now in the final finishing position. We missed the third's retirement, I believe. He retired from the race on a couple of laps, and we aren't even going to be able to see the finish of the race, but presumably it's going to be right. So we now, that was a somewhat boring race. I'll say that myself, and even though there was a fight to the end, we're now going to have to swap to 1988, which will hopefully provide more interesting races. So yeah, we'll see you then. I'll see you in a couple of